Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and I'm back for another round of Make It Make Sense. This time I'm looking at wide receivers and the insane price gaps between players of very similar ilk. The ultra-modern hobby market loves to bake career expectations into current prices, so much so that most, if not nearly all of the cards seem to only possibly have room to go down over time. I'm gonna cover three things today. One, a stat review of the all-time leaders and active player leaders for receiving stats. Two, my rankings of the top active receivers as well as those of all time. And then three, some specific card comparisons that should really make you scratch your heads. As always, this video is brought to you by Market Movers. Visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE when you check out for 14 days completely free and then 20% off for life as long as you're subscribed. Now let's get into the data. So I did some Instagram polls, and I'm just gonna get right to it. Y'all believe that when it's all said and done, Justin Jefferson will have had a greater career than Randy Moss? Something like 70% of you said yes to that very question. And it was like 84% who said that Jefferson would have had a better career than Julio Jones. That's a lot of confidence for a player only now entering into his fourth season. And you know what? You could be right. You could be right. Back in the 1990s, I probably would have been yelling about people who said that Randy Moss would have a better career than Chris Carter. And we all know how that played out. Nevertheless, when it comes to coulds, I really don't like to gamble on coulds. There are a lot of things, way too many things that can go wrong, especially with wide receivers. You can talk about injuries, bad quarterbacks, bad offensive lines who can't protect the quarterback, bad running backs allowing defenses to sit back in pass coverage, bad offensive coordinators, diva issues, off the field issues, the list goes on and on. There are so many risk factors. So when I see the prices of some of the active top wide receivers relative to actual all-time greats, I get a little uneasy. I get that secondhand discomfort feeling that makes me really, frankly, just have to walk away from my laptop and take a breather. So let's get into some of the data. And I want to be really clear about something. And we're going to get into this. Justin Jefferson is awesome. He's a freak. He's really good. I'd rank him number one in the NFL right now pretty clearly. I think there's a couple other guys you could talk about. Maybe Tyreek Hill, who's just a different type of player with his speed. So what I did was I went to StatMuse, and if you haven't used this site, you should be. It's so awesome. A kind of natural language recognition. You can type in questions, and it'll give you the stats. So I asked it, which players have the most receiving yards per game since 2014 with a minimum of 30 games played? And if you scroll down, so I was trying to look at active, current players. You've got Justin Jefferson at number one at 99.7 yards per game, and that's actually all-time great. If he were to retire right now, which obviously he's not going to, he would have that record of most yards, receiving yards per game. This season, he's at like 153 yards. He's on pace to 2,500 yards or something crazy, right? So if we're looking at this, you've got Justin Jefferson in number one, Antonio Brown. Man, he was so good. Antonio Brown was so good when he was active. Obviously, there's been a lot of issues since then with him. And then you've got Julio Jones at 90 yards per game. Now, bear in mind, when you're looking at really 3 seasons plus 3 games, versus an entire career. The impressive thing about Jefferson is that most players, most receivers especially, it takes them a while to ramp up to hit their prime, to start getting into that 15, 1,600, 2,000 receiving yards per season type of capability. A lot of guys, if they have 900 to 1,000 yards in their rookie year, that's very impressive. Once they get to the end of their careers, if they play a long time, they start to settle in, and that's going to drive that number down, that average yards per game down. So they're going to have more receiving yards total, but fewer yards per game. And that's kind of what happened with Julio Jones. That's what happened with Randy Moss and other players. So we've got Jefferson, Brown, Julio Jones, Jamar Chase, obviously in limited games, only 32 games played. Michael Thomas, who just obviously the injuries have absolutely killed his career. DeAndre Hopkins, who's been fantastic. Kupp, who's injured. Hill. Unsurprising list of guys here. So that's, I think, just worth kind of pointing out. Jefferson is leading the pack at a pretty frenetic pace with his receiving yards per game. How about for most touchdowns per game? We're not really used to looking at these like kind of fractional decimals, but this is how you can stack it up. And again, Antonio Brown at 0.74. Here's what's really important, right? Antonio Brown was that guy. Antonio Brown was very clearly the best receiver in the NFL. And he didn't even, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was good. He liked to, sling it around, but there were better guys in the league too who could have been throwing the ball to Brown. Now look at what's happened with his career. Nobody even wants to buy his cards because he's had all these kind of head problems. You don't know what he's going to do. There's a lot of worry about his overall, health and wellness and those around him in general. That's one of those types of issues that I say it makes me really nervous with a guy early in his career, let alone a guy who even had retired or was at the end of his career and started doing kind of wacky things. But then you've got Jamar Chase. So in terms of touchdowns per game, to me, there's like actually a really strong comparison between Jefferson and Julio Jones because they're racking up the receiving yards, but not necessarily the touchdowns. I think Jefferson only has 1 touchdown so far this season. He's got a lot of yards, but I believe his first receiving touchdown was this last week in their 3rd game for the Vikings. So you've got Chase, who's scoring a lot of touchdowns, 0.69. You've got Devontae Adams, who had Rodgers throwing him the ball, Tyreek Hill, Evans, and then you kind of can go down that list here as well. So take those things into consideration. Now what if we shift gears and we look at all-time leaders, okay? All-time receiving yards leaders. This is just total yards. Just to kind of get some names into your head, Jerry Rice, unsurprisingly, we all know that. Nobody's even close to that. I don't know that anybody can ever catch him. Even Justin Jefferson at this pace would have to play so long to catch up to what Jerry Rice did year over year. T.O., Randy Moss, Isaac Bruce, and the list goes on. Jump over and look at all-time touchdown leaders. Jerry Rice, 41 ahead of Randy Moss, 197 touchdowns. Next closest, 156. A lot of people just talk about how Jerry Rice, even in this era, this passing era, this pass-first era with receivers slinging the ball all over the place, you've got Jerry Rice, who played back in a time when most teams were just running the ball over and over again, who has these unbreakable records. You got T.O. again, Chris Carter, Harrison, Fitzgerald, a couple of tight ends, Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. Tony Gonzalez. Here's 2 guys who are proven, right? Who should be expensive. And then finally, let's shift over and let's look at receiving yards per game. Like I said, Justin Jefferson at 99.7, Julio Jones 87.9. I think these must be qualified leaders, because if we go back to that StatMuse, something doesn't quite line up with that. Okay, so that's sort of a stat overview. I know that's not card specific, but that's kind of showing you and giving you that picture. So if we take that list, I went in here, I said, okay, what would my all-time wide receiver rankings be? And I just put this into 2 tiers to avoid any drama, let's say. I think there's the clear tier 1 type of guys. And really what I did was I looked at players that I saw play in my lifetime, who I'm familiar with, who I know, and then, so I didn't take into consideration the Steve Largens and the Don Hudsons and these other players, from before my time. I just really can't comment. So tier 1, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, T.O., Larry Fitzgerald. Those are my tier 1 guys, 5 tier 1 players. And then in tier 2, you've got Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Steve Smith Sr., Michael Irvin, Tim Brown, Andre Johnson, Hines Ward, Julio Jones, Andre Reed, Bolden, Chad Johnson or Ocho Cinco, Brandon Marshall, and Antonio Brown. Now let's look at the current list, the current active list of players. Tier 1, these are the guys in tier 1 who I would say are the ones who have a potential to get into tier 2, maybe tier 1 of the all-time list. So you're looking at Justin Jefferson, Tyreek, Devontae Adams, Chase, and Stephon Diggs. But with Chase and Jefferson, again, they still have a long way to go. Diggs, I think, has had a really good career and is very good right now. I don't think he'll have the stats and the accolades to get into one of these top 2 tier lists by the end of his career, but you never know. He is really good and he does have a good quarterback throwing to him. Tier 2, we've got Kupp, my guy St. Brown, which, by the way, Madden has him ranked as the 21st wide receiver on their Madden ratings. That is ridiculous and criminal. Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin. So those are my lists, and that, as I was thinking about this and looking at some of the prices for Jefferson and some of these other guys, that's kind of like, okay, I was trying to make those comparisons and say, where should the multiples be from tier 1 versus other tier 1 players, and then tier 1 to tier 2. So let's get into the meat of this. Let's get to what you've been waiting for and shift over to the cards. And I'm going to show you a chart here. So we're going to look at some different players and I'm going to progressively unveil them based in price order. And I'm starting out with Stephon Diggs, who I just mentioned, $250. This card sold just a few days ago, $250 on September 25th for his raw true NTRPA numbered to 99, $250. Next up, Devontae Adams, $630. This is a sale from back in April. These cards don't sell super frequently. This is his PSA 9 NT RPA, okay? How about one of my favorites, personal favorites, obviously, certainly an all-time great, Calvin Johnson in a BGS 8.5 for his NTRPA, 1.1K from back in May 30th of 2023. Here's a card that literally just sold, 1.4K, Julio Jones. This is a PSA 10. I believe this is like a pop 3 or pop 5 type of card. PSA 10, actually it's pop 15. If we scroll down, I'm giving a spoiler away, but I know this is pop 15. Just sold, September 26, 1.4K for the PSA 10 RPA of Julio Jones. Now what about Justin Jefferson? Holy Hannah, did you see that chart shift? Did you see the chart shift? BGS 9, this is a BGS 9. $5,880 back in June for a BGS 9. And by the way, there's a really, really, really important distinction, in my opinion, here. And that is that the last few years of NT have been patches for the RPAs that are not from anything. They literally say not from any game, player, event, or anything. Whereas if you go back to the other ones, they'll say on the back, I believe the Julio Jones says on the back, that it is actually from the specific date from the rookie photo shoot worn by Julio Jones. Player worn. It's not game worn because it's a rookie, it's an early rookie card, but it's from those player rookie photo shoots. Whereas these new ones, they might just be go and grab a jersey out of the team shop, cut some pieces up, put some chunky slices in, and then you have the auto. So really, in my mind, it's just an auto card. It's not an RPA, it's an auto card that has the NT brand around it. And this card sold for almost $6,000. But wait, there's more. Look at Jamar Chase. This is a PSA 10, okay? This is a PSA 10 from April, $7,500. Now, in general, Jefferson is significantly outpacing Chase's cards right now, and maybe for good reason. We talked about this on Cards of the Table a few weeks ago. I thought that Chase had some potential this season to kind of catch up to Jefferson and maybe outpace him. That hasn't happened at all. But $7,500, and this to me calls to mind this, I don't know, this question that I can't really wrap my head around on the highest of high-end cards. On a card like his NTRPA, both of these numbered to 99, to say that a player like Chase, who like I said is cheaper than Jefferson, but because it's a PSA 10, he's going for more, $1,700 more than the BGS 9 of Jefferson. But look at this. By the time I unveiled all of these, I can't even actually hardly see Stephon Diggs' card anymore at $250. It's just this tiny little sliver because of the way these charts stack up. That is really hard for me to wrap my head around. These premiums, where do these cards stand to go from here? And the other problem is there are so many other cards. If you go back, every year that you go back in time, there are fewer and fewer and fewer variations for most of these players, fewer rookie cards, fewer rookie patch autos. But Jefferson and Chase, they have stuff from other sets. They've got Flawless, they've got Panini One, they've got, Contenders, they've got Spectra, they've got all these other products. Obviously Prism and the other things, which aren't as much, patch auto type cards. And these guys don't necessarily have those. So when I look at a career like Jefferson, on pace really maybe to match, maybe to exceed Julio Jones, and I see that huge price difference for a PSA 10 versus a BGS 9, that would make me really nervous if I were that player. I would rather have all 4 of these cards and feel good about those long term than I would have this one Justin Jefferson card. So now if we switch over, one other player that I wanted to mention as well, I could only put 6 people on the chart, so I come over here, I wanted to point out this sales history feature as well, that if you just want to scroll through players, you can see these. Here's Tyreek Hill. This is his number to 99, which sold for $350 in a PSA 8, $350. Maybe you say, oh, well, that doesn't seem great. Here's a PSA 9. Pop 2, this is the number to 25 RPA, and this card sold for $787. So Tyreek Hill, $787 for a PSA 9, number to 25. Justin Jefferson, $6K for a number to 99, BGS 9. Again, those 2 guys right now are 1 and 2, or like 1A and 1B in my mind, in terms of who I would want on my team as an incredible receiving threat. Now here's where it gets wild. Justin Jefferson's Black Finite rookie card. This sold on August 24th on PWCC for $57,600 for a wide receiver, Prism Black, 1 of 1, black finite, okay? Let's shift over and look at another player here named Randy Moss, who I said some of you think is going to have a better career. And this is the card that I could find that was the highest sale for Randy Moss, and that was $24,000. And this is for his PMG, PSA 10. This is the one that I believe is like pop 3. I believe it's pop 3 in a PSA 10. Again, there's only 50 of these. This is his rookie PMG from Metal Universe. And this one sold for $24,000. Now I know it's not a 1 of 1. I know it's numbered to 50, so maybe it's not apples to apples, but it's also a PMG. These are super iconic. This is his rookie card. This is one of his best rookie cards. And as you scroll down the list, you just won't see cards even sniffing the levels and the prices that Justin Jefferson is seeing. Here's one other fun comparison. Stefan Diggs, his 2015 Prism Black Finite 1 of 1 Auto, BGS 9 Auto 10, sold for $3K. $58K, $3K. I know Jefferson is really good right now. I know he's really good right now. But man, he is that is such a big game. He is absolutely going to have to be, hands down, the best player of this decade, one of the 3 to 5 best of all time. And I'm still not sure that that Prism Black Finite card would sell for more than it did earlier this year, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Last two comparisons, last two things to look at. Jamar Chase, his Prism Gold. This is his rookie card, his Prism Gold, Panini Absolute Kaboom Gold, numbered to 10. This is a PSA 10 Pop 1, sold on Golden about a year ago for $13.2K, We jump over and right now on eBay. Here's Julio Jones. Here's his finest Superfractor Auto, on-card auto, 1 of 1. A little bit of a faded auto, admittedly, but 1 of 1. And this card, I will tell you, has been sitting on eBay for quite some time, with a $10,000 list price and a best offer enabled, and it has been sitting here for a while. Chase, Julio Jones, 1 of 1, Superfractor, finest, auto, on-card rookie card, $10,000. Kaboom Gold, number to 10, of which there is a 1 of 1 green. This one sold for more than that, $13,200. So I look at these things and sometimes I can't wrap my mind around it. What do you think? Let me know. Do you think Justin Jefferson is going to be one of the 2 or 3 greatest receivers of all time? Do you just like him because he does the gritty? Do these prices make sense overall, these comparisons? Please let me know down in the comments. And while you are down there, make sure to do me a huge favor and like this video. Make sure you subscribe and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.